Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, this is your wish fulfilled. My name is Michelle. I'm sorry, you guys. I don't know. It's been a weird few days, but we're working through it anyway. Here it is. I've been telling you guys for I don't know how long that I was going to be doing this video. I just now barely got around to it, and it's been I don't know how many months. It's been a while, but this is exactly what I did to manifest, not only manifest my SP back, but also remove a third party. Okay. The exact like what I did. I will preface this, guys, before I go into this. I do want to preface this with saying that don't get hung up on techniques. Okay. Don't get hung up on techniques. Don't get hung up on if you're doing it right or wrong. The only thing that really matters is your feeling state. How is it making you feel? Okay. Don't get hung up on rules. Don't get hung up on regulations. Don't get hung up on techniques. Don't get hung up on any of that. If you have any question whatsoever about whether what you are doing is working, not working, you know, if it's working, whether you're doing it right or wrong. Okay. How is it making you feel? That's all that matters. Okay. If you have any question whether or not you're doing something too little or too much, how is it making you feel? that's how you regulate things. Okay. The mind really tries to complicate things and make things way more difficult than they need to be. You just really need to trust yourself. Okay. If it's feeling good, if at the end of the day you're feeling good, you're feeling certain, you know, Neville Goddard talks about a state of knowing, you guys. It's a feeling state called certainty, absolute certainty. It's just one of the four needs and wants of the ego that we talk about on this channel all the time. Okay, so I just wanted to preface that because I am going to tell you, you know, what I did, how often I did it, and stuff like that. But I don't want you to get hung up on technique, on rules, on whether you're doing something right or wrong. I really want you guys to be able to foster a trust, a faith in yourself. Okay. The only thing that really matters is your feeling state. You know, if you feel uncertain that you're doing it too much or you're doing it enough, test it, back off, do it less or do it more and see if you get better results. But really, at the end of the day, how is it making you feel? Okay. Is it improving your feeling state or is it harming it? That's how you know whether or not you're doing something right or wrong. And if you can't get anything to improve your feeling state, that's more than likely going to be because you have an existing feeling state regarding your manifestation that needs to be cleared out first. Okay. And we talk about clearing those existing feeling states out via a process called releasing the wants that many of you who are familiar with me and my work and my channel know all about. Okay. It's a video. It's linked in the description box below. If you cannot get any technique to work, in terms of helping you to improve your feeling state. All right. More than likely it is because there is an existing feeling state that is programmed that like cancels that out. Okay. So we need to get in there and clear that out first. Okay. All right. So let's get into it. All right. So do I need to include a backstory? No, I don't think I need to. I will just tell you that this was somebody that I was married to. We have kids together, okay? And our relationship was tumultuous, very tumultuous. And by the time this situation with my SP manifested, things were very unsettled, I guess. Yeah. So when the situation where the third party manifested, I will say prior to that point, I hadn't yet come across the law of assumption. Okay. When the third party situation manifested, I was somewhat familiar with Neville Goddard's name. I was not familiar with his work. I was not familiar with law of assumption. I was, however, familiar with the law of attraction. I already had this knowing of me being, an operant power. I didn't know that, I didn't term it that way, but I already knew of myself being the god or the goddess of my reality. I'm the one creator. I created all, everything, I already knew about everyone as you pushed out, just not in those terms. Okay. Everything to me, it was more of a reflection. So I had, some of the stuff with law of assumption, I already had some familiarity with, just by, my own experiences. A lot of it was more something that I just kind of awakened into. And so that definitely helped. And I also, prior to the third party manifesting, was well versed in releasing the wants, being too much in the masculine mind-based energy versus, not being enough in the feminine heart-based, emotion-based energy, things of that nature. So a lot of the things, most of the things that I talk to you about on this channel, I've been working on for the better part of 4 or 5 years. Okay. So I wanted to preface that because for those 4 or 5 years, I was developing a very, very strong foundation as far as my self-concept goes. Okay. I didn't call it a self-concept, that, it was more of a self-image, self-worth, clearing up toxic attachments and stuff like that. That's integral. Okay. So I will say one of the number one top things that I did to be able to manifest in my SP and remove a third party, like within a couple of weeks of putting things into motion, doing it consciously, was a solid self-concept. Okay, that was already in place. I had spent, now I'm not saying you have to spend 4 or 5 years to do that. And for me, it was a lot of trial and error because I didn't have anybody like holding my hand and teaching things the way that I'm teaching you. This was a lot of stuff I was picking and, how to, not cherry picking, certain things of certain teachings over here and then over there. And then at some point I realized, I saw how it all fit together. And finding Neville Goddard, or I should say the law of assumption, was kind of like that final piece. Okay. So self-concept, I know a lot of people, want to say that you don't have to work on self-concept. I don't agree with that. Okay. You want to have a solid self-concept because the last thing you want to do, you guys, is manifest something out of toxic attachment. Manifesting something out of toxic attachment, you guys, is going to be the reason why, number one, you're either not manifesting it in or struggling to manifest it in, or you're struggling to maintain it once it's manifested in. You definitely want to work on your self-concept. Okay, come on now. I mean, why wouldn't you want to? Do you like being triggered? Do you like being attached to what is happening in the 3D? Do you like being triggered all the time? Of course you don't. So how do you not be triggered by the 3D? You work on your self-concept. Okay. And here's a little thing for you guys. Here's a little clue. Because a lot of you guys are going around and you're kind of, you're dumbfounded because you're like, my self-concept is good, but things are not manifesting the way that I want them to manifest. Okay. Do you want to know for real? Do you want to know for real how your self-concept is? You want to know, here's a little test. Okay. You know that your self-concept is good. We'll just say in the area of your self-worth. Okay. You can know that your self-concept, as far as your self-worth is concerned, is solid when your SP or whatever it is you are manifesting. Okay, we'll just say, an SP. When your SP shows up and tells you you're not good enough, if it triggers feelings of you not being good enough, okay, your self-concept, you still have work to do. Okay, how do you know that your self-concept in the area of self-worth is solid? Is when your SP can show up and tell you you're not good enough and it doesn't trigger nothing. In fact, you're like, you laugh because it's like, better. You know, it doesn't affect you. It doesn't trigger you at all. Okay. Here's something that you guys have to understand. If that belief is not there, if it's not subconscious, if you have released your attachment, your identification, your ownership of that belief that I'm not good enough, right? That self-concept that I'm not good enough, then there's not going to be anything to trigger. Okay. It's the same thing as if somebody were to come up to you and tell you that the sky is red when clearly it's not. It's just like, you look at them like they're crazy, like you're blind. Okay. You know, that's your opinion. It's wrong. That's your opinion and you're entitled to it. I'm going to go do my thing. Okay. That's how you know that your self-concept is solid. If someone can still trigger feelings of abandonment, feelings of not feeling good enough, feelings of not being enough, feelings of feeling invisible, then your self-concept is still has work to do. All right. So first and foremost, self-concept, one of the ways to do that, I actually have a video here in the catalog somewhere about how to do self-concept or something like that. But the process that we do for all of this, you guys, is releasing the wants. Okay. So in other words, if, you know, your SP dealing with third parties makes you feel not good enough. Okay. That's why that scenario is manifesting in the first place. Okay. Because you already are not feeling good enough. You already are feeling threatened. Otherwise, that would not be happening. It wouldn't be manifesting, and it certainly would not be triggering any challenging feeling states of not feeling good enough, not feeling number one, feeling threatened or whatever. Okay. When I mean threatened, I'm not saying physically threatened, like threatened in terms of someone stealing your SP away from you, feeling threatened in terms of not being able to be with that person again. That's what I mean. Okay. And so what you would do in terms of using releasing the wants to help improve your self-concept, you first want to clear away the existing self-concept or the existing feeling state that I'm not good enough. Okay. You clear that away. So we go over that process in releasing the wants. Okay. So video in the description box below. And that process also helps you to release any toxic attachments that you might have to your SP, which could very well be the reason you're not seeing movement. You're not, you know, and you guys, seeing movement isn't a big deal. I mean, movement's always happening. That's a good assumption to have, that movement is always happening, whether you see it or not. But I do understand too, like if you've been doing this for a year and you're not seeing nothing, right? Not to say that it's not working, but it may be triggering some really challenging feeling states. Like things not happening in the 3D can really trigger us. Okay. Things happening in the 3D and things not happening in the 3D can trigger us. It's going to be one of the most handiest tools in your toolbox to learn how to clear out those triggers, the energy holding that trigger in place. Okay. We do that through the process called releasing the wants. All right. So, and that is one of the assumptions, you know, one of the affirmations that maybe, you know, you might want to write down and have it handy, because, you know, if you're still like trying to manifest in an SP months, years, however long, a very good assumption to carry around with you is that no matter what is happening in 3D, no matter what I'm seeing or not seeing, movement is happening in my favor every single day, whether I see it, notice it or not, because we have to remember the mind is tricky. The mind, you know, especially when it's programmed with certain feeling states and thought patterns and belief systems and structures and stuff like that, the mind is really good at deleting evidence to the contrary of that belief system or the belief pattern or whatever. Literally, you could have evidence right in front of you that, you know, you're good enough. You could even have people telling you that you're good enough, but because you may have a belief system or a belief pattern in place, subconsciously even, your brain is just going to delete that because it doesn't fit your narrative. Okay. All right. So, okay, getting your self-concept in place, that's going to be the solid foundation. Okay. That's also going to help you really deal with things as they are fleshing out in 3D while you're waiting for your manifestation in its fullness to manifest. Because what sometimes can end up happening, and I don't want you to make this an assumption, okay? I'm just giving you a heads up. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes for whatever reason, especially when you are programming in a new belief system, okay, a new self-concept, it's like the old one purges out, okay? And it may be because, it's pushing out, or it's in direct conflict with an existing self-concept and an existing programmed default feeling state. So you have to remember, if you're feeling it, whether you are subconsciously feeling it or consciously feeling it, it's still manifesting. So just think about it like that. If, you're in the middle of reprogramming your self-concept with a new and improved one, right? And then things seem to fall apart in the 3D, like you're seeing the exact opposite happen. That is probably more than likely because the 3D is just showing you what needs to be flushed out, what needs to be released, what needs to be cleared away in terms of how is it making you feel, okay? So if you're affirming that, for instance, my SP loves me and only me, I'm the only one they want to be with, okay? And then like you get a text an hour later where your SP is like, I don't want you and only you. In fact, I want this person more than I want you, okay? That's something in the 3D that could very well trigger you. And the reason why it's triggering you is because that feeling state, that belief about yourself already exists, which is exactly why that text manifested in the first place. Okay. So what do you do in an instance like that? Okay. And this is what I did. So what do you do in an instant like that? You stop, because the mind is going to be racing, right? The mind is going to see, like the mind is going to want to, like, there's evidence, there's proof, that blah, 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 blah. No. Okay. You're not your mind. You're not even your feelings. You're not your body. You're above and beyond all of that. So, you let the God part, the goddess part of you take over. Okay. And stop, take a deep breath, try to step outside of what is going on and look at it from, a 30,000 foot view, the God view, the goddess view, whatever you want to call it, the creator view. Okay. Look at it and be like, okay, I see why this is happening. It's not a coincidence that I just affirmed that my SP loves me and only me and doesn't want to be with anybody else but me. And then an hour later, I get a text that tells me the exact opposite. That text is letting me know what's in the way. And what is in the way? If you don't know, just look at how it's making you feel. How is it making you feel? What thoughts did it trigger? Okay. If it's triggered thoughts of, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough, he doesn't want me, stuff like that. That is what's getting in the way. That's what's been programmed in your subconscious. See, things happen in the 3D to push what's in your subconscious, which means it's hidden. You can't see it. But just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not affecting and manifesting in your 3D. Okay. You didn't consciously manifest a third party. You didn't go around saying, I hope he gets a third party. I hope a third party situation develop. No, you didn't do that. You didn't even think about that. In fact, you were hoping it wasn't going to happen, right? You may have been fearing against it, but the fact of the matter is that, and some of you may not have even expected it, it may not have been on your radar, but it happened anyway. Why? You're manifesting on autopilot based on what is already programmed in your subconscious. All right. So that's how, kind of, to the best of your ability, start to look at things happening in the 3D simply as feedback. And be thankful that those things are popping up only because it's showing you what is blocking that manifestation from coming in. Okay. That text is showing you in terms of what it is triggering, the thoughts that it's triggering, the emotions it's triggering, the feeling states it's triggering. And what do you do with that stuff? You release through it. Okay. If it's thoughts, you reframe it. Okay. Flip it and reverse it. I'm not gonna rap that song, but I want to, but I'm not gonna. Okay. Anyway, okay. So moving on. Now that we got your self-concept is solid, you know exactly what to do with 3D circumstances if they happen to pop up and trigger you. Okay. Now we're gonna get into like techniques and stuff like that. Okay. So manifesting my SP and removing a third party. One of the first things I did, you guys, was I really sat down and I looked at my assumptions in regard to my SP, like him as a person, my assumptions on our relationship, and my assumptions on just kind of like love in general. Okay, that was one of the first things I did, because one of the first things I learned was, you know, that's what's manifesting are your assumptions. I later realized, oh, it's really your feeling states, but assumptions are attached to those, right? And so I had to start telling myself a different story. Okay, a story that I used to have regarding my, I should say old SP, because he's not my SP anymore. I moved on from that. Was that, you know, he was a playboy. He was never satisfied with one person. He could never be a one woman man. You know, he always needed, you know, he was always needing, he was a hunter. He needed to chase, and he was never satisfied. He was not a one woman man. Basically, he was a player. And he would never be satisfied in a monogamous relationship. That was my assumption of him. Okay. And then, you know, I looked at my assumption of, you know, our marriage and our relationship in general. Like it was always going to be this way. We're always going to struggle. We're always going to clash. It's always going to be unbalanced, you know, and stuff like that. So I changed my story. I looked at the existing story. I could see why it was manifesting, right? And I switched it. I started affirming that, you know, he was done with that lifestyle, that, you know, the reason why he was like that in the first place was because of his own, you know, issues and stuff like that. And so I just started affirming and creating a new story that he was dissatisfied with that life. It was not, it was no longer fulfilling or satisfying. It never was. Okay. And that he wanted to be with me and only me. Like, you know, he's been on the field, like prior to that point, like he played around a lot, like he's been around the block, right? And I'm like, okay, he's been around the block. He sees, he doesn't want anybody else but me. Nobody can satisfy him like I do. I'm the only person he thinks about. You know, it's like everything circles back to me. I changed my story about our relationship. I changed my story about him and how he viewed me. Okay. And, you know, and a lot of that stems first with my own self-concept about myself. Like it was easier for me to affirm that, you know, he sees that I'm worthy. He knows that I'm the best he's ever had. He knows that he'll never find better than me. And I was able to believe that because I first changed my self-concept in that area. Okay. My self-concept was, I am the best. I'm the best you'll ever have. I'm it. I'm number one, top tier. It doesn't get any better than me. Okay. And you have to remember, I worked on my self-concept prior to that point. It wasn't 100%. No, like, you know, of course it wasn't 100% because him, or I should say a third party situation developing really popped up some stuff that was hidden in my, you know, in my subconscious for a while that I was like, okay, I need to work through that. So that's just what I did. Change my story about him, how he viewed relationships, how he viewed me, how he viewed, you know, you see what I mean? Like I looked at it from several different angles. So that's what you want to do. If you have any existing beliefs or stories about you, relationships, your SP, how your SP views you, how they view relationships, you want to change all of those around. And this is where like living in the end can really kind of help. I know people say not to play around or dabble too much in the middle, and I do agree with that to some degree. When people talk about dabbling in the middle, what they're usually saying is you don't want to get too involved in how something is going to manifest. Okay. For me, dabbling in the middle doesn't necessarily mean like you can't say, my SP is missing me. My SP can't wait to talk to me. My SP dreams about me. My SP thinks, I'm the most gorgeous creature alive. Okay. Messing with the middle is going to be something more along the lines of like, trying to manifest a meeting point, or trying to manifest, dealing with the how. But again, what I always draw you guys back to is how it's making you feel. If it makes you feel good to mess with the middle a little bit, go right on ahead and mess with the middle if it makes you feel good. The only reason why it's best not to is because the part of you, the I am consciousness, knows the fastest way to get you to where you want to go. Okay. And it may have a faster way to get you from point A to point B than what you're currently manifesting. So that's why people are saying like, just stick to the end. Like if you're developing, and this is something else that I did, we're getting into SATs, okay, state akin to sleep, where state akin to sleep is that moment right before you go to bed, you're in a certain brain wave state that is like the opening to the subconscious, the gateway into the subconscious, where you're easily able to impress that scene into your subconscious, that's what you want to manifest, right? That's why you want to pick a scene that is at the very end. Okay, so for instance, if you want to manifest your SP back, how far do you want it to go? Do you want marriage with them? If that's how far you want it to go, if you want marriage and kids, okay, construct a SAT scene where you are, say, renewing your wedding vows after 5 years. Okay, if you want marriage and kids, this is what you would do. This is not a suggestion, it's an example. Okay, maybe you're renewing your vows, and then you've got a couple of young kids, present while you're renewing your vows. That would be an awesome SAT scene to do. Okay, an awesome scene to take to SATs. And the reason why you want to do that is because there's a lot of stuff in between that might need to happen to get to that point. But your God self, your I amness, knows the shortest route to get there. That's why people say don't mess with the middle, because not that you can't, but you meddling may delay things. Okay, so but the reason why I would do things like affirm that he's missing me, he's, he can't wait to talk to me, he dreams about me all the time, he's texting me right now, like he's, writing out a text, he's trying to think of the perfect thing to say. The reason why I would do stuff like that was because I was encountering a challenging feeling state and thoughts that I needed to flip around. Okay. I was more so affirming those things because I was dealing with I was wondering, like, does he even miss me? Does he even want me anymore? And so I was affirming on that he was missing me, that he was wanting me and stuff like that, to flip that feeling state and those thoughts around. Okay. To me, that's not really messing with the middle. That's just bringing your feeling state more in alignment with what you're wanting to manifest. Okay. So going back to essentially, you just want to find, like, make up a 3 to 5 second clip. Okay. Like a movie scene that's going to be on loop, loop. And for about 3 to 7 days, at least. Okay. You can do it as much as you want, whatever feels good. You, right before you go to sleep, you will loop this scene in your mind as you're drifting off. Okay. And you're drifting off sometimes because like all of a sudden it's weird. You'll be kind of in a different scene that has nothing to do. And you're like, oh, you got to kind of bring it back. Okay, bring it back. You can also do this through meditation. Meditation can do the same thing. If you're meditating for real, meditation can often get you to that really sleepy state. You have to kind of push through it. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about that all the time. Like, you can reach that state in a meditative way also as well. But usually people will tell you, if you're trying to do that, make sure you're sitting up or something so you don't end up falling asleep. All right. So that's what I did. I just, what I did for this particular scenario was, I didn't take it all the way to the end. I was just, this sounds really bad, but I was just concerned with getting the third party out of there and him like wanting to be with me. So my end scene for me basically was him telling me that, him and the third party were done. It was over with, like, and I had affirmations regarding the third party that I would also say whenever I felt threatened by thoughts or was experiencing feeling states in regards to the third party situation. Things like he can't stand her. He looks at her and doesn't even know why he's with her. Every time he sees her, he's wishing she was me, like, stuff like that. And so, and you may be asking, like, what do I affirm? What should I affirm? Well, you're probably affirming in the opposite as it is. If you're wondering, are they even thinking about me? Do I even cross their mind? Those are affirmations. Okay. You can tell what you might want to affirm based off of what you are already affirming. That's manifesting what you're not wanting to experience. Okay. So for instance, if you catch yourself wondering, are they even missing me? You want to catch that thought and be like, of course they're missing me. They miss me all the time. Okay. If you are wondering if, am I even crossing their mind? Of course I cross their mind. Are you kidding? I'm the first person they think about when, they wake up. I'm the last person they think about when they go to bed. Okay. That's how you know what to affirm, is because you're already affirming something in relation to your SP. Okay. So just catch those thoughts, catch those wonderings, whatever it is, and flip it. Those are your affirmations. Okay. So SATs is something that I did, and I can't exactly, I'll just say maybe 7 days. Okay. Neville says 3 days, do SATs for 3 days, but that's if you are able to completely immerse yourself in that scene. And I mean, by way of like, the feeling, like you're really there, like you're actually, able to conjure up the feelings and the tones of reality of whatever that scene is going to be. And, it may help you guys so that when you're actually in the process of doing the SAT scene, to actually maybe outline it first. Okay, sit down and actually construct on paper the scene so that when you are taking it to SATs every night, there's no confusion. There's no like, okay, what do I do now? Okay. So really, like, I would sit down if I were you and really compose a SAT scene. Okay. So if you're wanting to manifest marriage and kids with your SP, go way far to the end where you guys have already been married. You've been married for 5 years. You guys have kids. You're getting your vows renewed for whatever reason or whatever it is. Pick a scene. Okay. I like the thought of, having your vows renewed with your kids right there, simply because that is implying that, y'all are still in love. People are, not only are you celebrating your union, but other people are celebrating your union too. And you know what I mean? To me, that makes me feel good. If I were you, I would do that. So renewing your vows with your SP, with your kids right there, imagine as much as you possibly can, what you are seeing and what you are hearing, and maybe even what you're smelling. Okay. Maybe you can smell the wedding cake. like not too far away or whatever. Okay. If you go to a church, or, you have a specific person that you might have ordain it, and, they wear a certain kind of cologne, you can bring that cologne, you can smell that cologne, you know what I'm saying? Things like that. Okay. Tones of reality is simply saying, what you would realistically be seeing, hearing, touching, feeling with your, senses, smelling, maybe even tasting. And the more tones of reality that you can include, in other words, the more senses that you can include, the more powerful it's going to be. Okay. I do know some people have some issues with visualizing. One thing that you can really try if you have a hard time visualizing is just imagining talking on the phone. And if you can't even imagine talking on the phone, get an actual phone. Okay. Get an actual phone. This is not a phone, but I'm just saying, and do it like that. Okay. Just imagine yourself, because some people, are more, visual. Some people are more, learning styles. That's what we'll say. Some people are more visual. They visualize things a lot more. Some people are more auditory. Some people are more kinesthetic. So it just depends on how you're, what your learning style is. So I did do SATs, and I also, wrote down a lot of affirmations, and most of the affirmations that I wrote down really had to do with counteracting affirmations I was already, I should say unconsciously, because they would just pop up. I'm like, oh, that's not good, right? And affirmations that I was already carrying around. Okay. So like I told you earlier, I would wonder, like, does he even think about me? I would catch that and I would write it down. He thinks about me all the time. I'm all he ever thinks about. Okay. So, I wrote down a list of affirmations, and then I also got an app called Think Up, ThinkUp, Think Up. There's probably going to be other apps that you can get to, where I was able to record those affirmations and listen to them at night. Okay. So I did do, it's not really technically a subliminal if you can hear it, but that's what you might find it under if you were to go look at, look things up. So I could hear them, and I actually preferred it that way. I preferred going to sleep, listening to affirmations that were empowering my manifestation. Okay. So whatever I was affirming sporadically throughout the day, and you guys, I didn't have a formula. Okay. Really what it was, when I would affirm is when I would catch myself or catch my feeling state being drugged down by what was or wasn't going on in the 3D. Okay. That's how often I did it. It really was dependent upon my feeling state. Okay. If I wasn't feeling particularly any type of way, I mean, there would be days I would affirm all day. There would be days where, I would keep myself busy or, keep myself, I don't want to say distracted, but there were days where I would affirm more than other days. Okay. Which we are going to be talking about, distractions and stuff like that. That's coming up. All right. So SATs, affirmations, you definitely want to have some affirmations in your artillery, okay, your tool belt, because things are going to be popping up and you want to be able to have something available to counteract it. Okay. And as you guys go on, you will realize what your dominant affirmations are going to be. It's going to be based off of where your self-concept is at in regards to what is happening in the 3D with your SP right then and there. Okay. The first, I don't know, week or so is going to be kind of like a trial period as you try to figure out what works best. Right? Try not to get too attached to stuff. Okay. Again, the mind is going to want to get in there and be like, it's going to want to control everything. It's going to want to make sure it's doing everything right. Part of the releasing process, you guys, is letting go of all of that. Okay. Getting yourself to a point where it's just kind of like, it's fine. Whatever, it's fine. Okay. It's working itself out. If there's any bugs whatsoever, they'll work themselves out. Okay. And then as far as affirmations go, I took those affirmations, I made a voice recording, my own voice, through a app called Think Up, and then I set it up on a loop, and it looped all night. Okay. And I did this until I got to a point where I was like, I just felt like I didn't need it anymore. I'm like, I can focus on something else. Okay. So I'd say for about maybe like the first week or so, that was pretty much like manifesting my SP was pretty much my main focus. Okay. And I got to a certain point where I was like, I need to do something else. Okay. This is what I'm getting ready to talk to you about right now is probably going to be one of the most, I don't want to set that assumption. It was for me, it was one of the more challenging things to do, because I realized I'm focused way too much on him, what he is doing, what he's not doing. I need to like withdraw my energy. Basically what I did, you guys, I realized, okay, it's impressed, what I'm wanting is impressed. The seed has been planted. I need to go and focus on something else, because, I was just kind of like, I need to find something else that is going to make me feel good about myself. Okay. I need to build up my self-concept. I need to build up how I'm feeling about myself. What can I do that's going to make me feel better about myself, about my life, and about my future, above and beyond what my SP is or is not doing? Okay. And I realized I'm thinking about him too much. Okay. I think about him way too much. I'm doing way too much work in his direction, and I need to pull back my energy away from it. Let the manifestation happen and unfold as it needs to. Let the soil do its work. Let the universe, the environment do its work. And I'm going to go enjoy my life. Okay. That's what I did. So after about a week, and maybe it wasn't a week, it could have just been about 5 days or so, I really was like, okay, what can I do besides trying to manifest my SP to increase my feeling state, how I feel about myself? And so, I started hanging out with my friends more, starting getting out of the house more, started tending to, what can I do to maybe improve my finances? What can I do to improve my health? What can I do to improve myself as a person, to improve my body, improve my health? What do I like to do above and beyond my SP that really nurtures a feel good feeling state? Okay. Started going to like dance fitness classes because I love to dance. Started looking at choreography music on, YouTube and just stuff like that. Okay. I like drawing. I like writing. I like getting out of the house and walking. What can you do above and beyond your SP that does not include your SP that can nurture your feeling state? Okay. Because if you're having a hard time even finding something beyond your SP that makes you feel good, that is going to be indicative of a toxic attachment. Okay. And you can release through that as well. All right. Don't get too hung up on toxic attachment either. There is a way that you can clear that out. Okay. And because I got to a point where I remember, you guys, prior to even finding Neville Goddard and the law of assumption, I was already well versed in toxic attachments, realizing that I need to figure out how to fill my own cup. Okay. And that's basically what I did. I'm like, all right, I got way too much attention. My mind is always focused on him and her and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, the not the hard part, but the magic, right? Everything's been planted. It's working. It's doing what it needs to do. I'm just going to peel my energy back off of him. And what that meant was I'm going to do what I need to do so that I'm not constantly thinking about him. Now, does that mean that he didn't ever pop up in my mind even while I was doing things that I enjoyed? Of course, but I was still in a moment where I was doing something for me that had nothing to do with him. He would still pop up in my mind and stuff. And if anything was triggered, I would release through it in that moment, and this would be a time too, where I would be like, okay, depending on where I was feeling that energy out, if a trigger would pop up, I would basically just like, tap my heart, tap, tap, and send them love, send them grace, send them gratitude, whatever. Okay. And I'm like, okay, I release you. That was kind of my physical way of like, okay, I'm releasing you. Okay. In this moment, I'm releasing, wanting you, wishing you were here, all of that stuff. Because remember, if you're wanting something, it's coming from a place of not having it. And if that's how you're feeling, that's what you're going to continue to manifest. So I would release on that in the moment. And I would just sometimes just tap, send it away. Like I release that. Okay. And if I needed to affirm, I would affirm. It just depended. Okay. There's not a formula for this. It really just depends on what helps you in the moment to improve and or maintain a feel good feeling state. Now, that doesn't mean, you guys, that if, something really big is triggered, that you'd try your damnedest to get out of that. What a lot of people are not realizing about releasing the wants, you guys, we're talking about being in the feminine energy mode of manifesting. Okay. The whole point of being in your feminine energy, which is surrender, it's acceptance. You're not releasing to obtain a result. That's not what releasing is. Releasing is simply dropping down into it and saying, I'll stay here as long as it needs to. I'll feel it as long as I need to feel it. I'm not trying. The whole point of it is like, I'm not here to change it. I'm not here to, correct it. I'm not here to manipulate it. I'm just here to experience it. And all of its glory or challenging or whatever. Okay. That's what releasing is. Releasing isn't, ooh, I don't like the way I'm feeling, I'm going to release so that I don't feel this way anymore. That's not releasing. Okay. That's resistance. It doesn't work that way. You don't release to get a result. That's not feminine energy. That's not releasing. That's not accepting. That is trying to push it away more. Okay. So a lot of times people will get on, they'll ask about the process releasing the wants. Well, how long is it going to take for me? Like I did it once or twice and nothing's happening. You're not releasing. Okay. That's not what releasing is. Releasing is surrendering to the now, what is here right now, and allowing yourself to fully experience it, whatever it is, no matter how good or bad it feels, without wanting to change it or trying to change it. You're just, I'm here, I'm experiencing it. We're not saying you agree with it, okay? But it's allowing it. You're allowing it anyway. All right. Let's see. What else did I do? Oh, yeah. And here's something. A lot of you, no, I'm not gonna make that assumption. It is a bit controversial though. Okay, I will say, and I actually did a video of this. I think it may have been about a month back, where I was talking about dating as a manifesting technique. Okay. I chose to go ahead and date. Like, I'm like, why not? It wasn't, and you guys have to understand, I did not do it in the energy of, I'm going to date just in case my SP doesn't manifest. That's not why I did it. Okay. I chose to date because it was just another way for me to be able to feel good about myself in the moment, in the future and stuff outside of my SP. Okay. Because it felt good to be in the presence of, other people. It was a way for me to meet people. It was a way for me to allow the 3D to reflect back to me my new self-concept, right? And in terms of like being attractive to people, being wanted, being desired and stuff like that. Okay. And it was nice to be able to not be at home constantly wondering, what so-and-so was doing. Now, I also did realize that dating also would more than likely trigger me. Okay. I went into it knowing that. Thankfully, I know how to release triggers. I absolutely did release triggers when those times happened. And, it was an amazing learning experience for me. Okay. Which I'm not going to get too much into the whole dating thing right now. That needs to be a whole separate, like a teaching, because the way that I went about dating this time was completely different than the way that I went about dating, before. I learned about healing toxic attachment and the law of assumption and Neville Goddard. Okay. I will say that I didn't go into dating looking for my next anything. Okay. I went, like, when I would go on a date with somebody, I had no expectation about what that person was going to be to me. What I did when I showed up or when I started talking to somebody was I just kind of sat back in the moment and I allowed that person to show up how they were meant to show up. I didn't try to force them into any box. I didn't, there was no wishing this person would act a certain way. Is this going to be my next boyfriend? Or, you know what I mean? There was none of that. It was more of, okay, I'm going to see how, I'm going to go on this date or meet this person. And I'm just going to sit back and see how they show up and see what role they naturally fit into. Now, sometimes the role that they naturally fit into was they didn't make it past date one. Okay. That's fine. No attachment there. Didn't make it mean anything. Certainly wasn't like, oh, there's no good guy. No, I didn't say any of that. That was that person. That was that experience. If it triggered anything, I released through it. Another role might be, oh, this is, this person's nice. Like, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. We get along really well. I like his personality. He likes mine. And, for whatever reason, whether it was him or I, the role may be, it's not going to go any further than maybe just, a friendship. Right. And then sometimes, it would be like, ooh, there's like an attraction here on top of all of that. Right. And then just kind of sit back and let that person show up how they're going to show up. Don't try and make them fit into a role they don't naturally fit into. Okay. But like I said, I'll go into more about like dating, consciously dating on purpose, dating to be able to help you clear out like any triggers and stuff like that, and how to use dating as a manifesting technique. Okay. How to use temporary SPs to manifest your ultimate SP. It really does help if you are approaching dating in a mindset where you're not hoping like, is this going to be my next, I need a boyfriend. Is this person going to be my next boyfriend? No, you don't, it's not like you are, it helps to get you out of that needy, clingy energy if that's how you're feeling towards your SP. But what we're not wanting to do is transfer that needy and that clingy energy to somebody else. Okay. We don't want to do that simply because it is a repellent. Okay. People don't, whether they can tell or not, subconsciously they are picking up on it. Okay. So even if you're not like bombing their texts and calling them 24/7 and asking them, where do you see us going, like in the first week or two, you know what I mean? It's like, even if you're not acting needy and clingy, if you are in that energy whatsoever, if you're constantly thinking about them, feeling anxious, feeling worried, wondering, whatever, they're picking up on that because we are all connected. They are absolutely picking up on the energy. So the best thing that you can do is to work on your self-concept and to work on like dismantling your toxic attachment that is more than likely born out of an abandonment wound, which, you guys, don't get too hung up on that either. Just go through the releasing the wants. Okay. Because it does it all. Okay. Releasing the wants releases the toxic attachment that you might have to your SP, to anything going on in the 3D, really. And while it's doing that, it is also at the same time releasing the abandonment wound. Okay. So you're healing on multiple levels when you are going through the releasing the wants process. Okay. For third party stuff, the only thing that I really did that I focused on really was kind of like the end scene where it was like they weren't together. We were together, me and my SP were together. And it wasn't so much that we were talking about the SP. It was more along the lines of just knowing like this, this person, the third party was not anything that he was thinking it was going to be. Like, it was a mistake, things along those lines. Okay. So as far as affirmations that you can say, I would say things like, he can't stand her. Like, he sees her for how she really is, and he thinks she's fucking annoying. Okay. Every single day it's like he's getting sick of her. Like, and it was funny, you guys, because when the third party situation did end up going away, I would hear from not just my SP, but from other people that also knew this person, and they would actually mirror back to me my affirmations. They absolutely work. You just want to make sure that you get yourself into the right kind of feeling state. And Neville often talks about a state of knowing, okay, which is it's a feeling state of absolute certainty, feeling absolutely certain that that's what reality is, whether you're seeing it, experiencing it or not. And I was able to, at that point in time, even if it was pockets of time, I was like, he can't stand her. Like, she gets on his nerves. Oh my gosh, she gets on his nerves so much. Like, and I didn't have to get too much into the detail, because the I amness, the goddess part of me knows exactly what that thing would have been. I didn't have to say, oh, well, she's superficial. He thinks she's superficial. He thinks that, she's this, that, and the other. I didn't have to do that. Okay. My thing was just like, what do I want the end result to be? I want him to not be able to stand her. I want him to not want to be around her anymore. Like, can't wait to get away from her, get to it. You know what I mean? And so I didn't pay too much attention to the detail in terms of, he thinks she's superficial. He thinks that, she's fake. He thinks that she's this, that, mean, whatever. I didn't have to do that. I just wanted the end result to be him not being able to stand her. Okay. And then the I amness, the creator being in me, was able to fill in the gaps where they needed to be filled in at. Okay. And remember, the more living in the end, the more towards that you're able to live in, the better. Because like I said, your I amness, the creator being part of you, knows the fastest way to get you from point A to point B. And the less that you dabble in the middle, the better off you're going to be, which is, probably why. And you guys, I guess I can let you know this, a little bit of backstory, because in the interim, my SP was kind of a dick. I'm just going to say it. Okay. He was. All right. He was that kind of person who, if you made him mad, he went for the throat. Okay. Not like for real, but like, what do they got? Proverbial, whatever, metaphorically speaking. And so, he would get mad if we were to ever talk about what was going on with, him and the third party and stuff like that. And he would actually tell me, like, he would, what do they call it? He would hype her up, right? Make her out to be like God's gift to men and the best thing and blah, blah, blah. And so if I was overly attached to what was happening in the 3D, that could have really derailed me, right? But I knew better. I'm like, first of all, I knew that was simply a manifestation of what I was feeling about myself, because, I'm like, oh, okay, I've got this fear that he's going to find somebody better than me. And that's exactly why this is manifesting, is because that fear within me exists. That's exactly why it manifested. So I just got to work like, number one, it's like, I know how he was. I'm like, okay. I already knew. I was like, I could already tell what kind of person she was going to be just based off of what he was attracted to and what he thought was perfect. Okay. So I just knew. I'm like, okay, we'll see about that. Yeah. And it only took 2 weeks, you guys. It took 2 weeks from putting conscious effort into it for that relationship to just, and they weren't even together that long. I think it was like a month and a half. Okay. And it unraveled. It took 2 weeks. It may have been like 2 weeks and a day. I don't know. It was like right at that 2 week mark. And I do know that because I journal, okay, a lot. And I did not for this specific reason, but it just so happens that I started journaling on the very day that I consciously started to manifest the third party situation out, and me and my SP reuniting and getting back together. And then, when he finally did tell me that the third party situation was no more, wondering if, is it too late? Do I still have a chance? And we started talking more about things and how they developed and stuff. I was able to go back and be like, oh, okay, y'all broke up almost exactly 2 weeks to the day that I put all this in motion. Y'all, you know what I mean? Like, y'all broke up 2 weeks almost to the day on, on the first day that I started planting those seeds. Powerful, powerful stuff. So yeah, you guys, but really don't try not to complicate things too much. Really what it's all about, like, I guess in summary, we can say it all really comes back to your feeling state. Okay. If you are feeling triggered, just know how to release those triggers so that when you are fostering or creating a new self-concept with more like empowering feeling states, it's going to be difficult to cover up an existing challenging feeling state with a new one. You got to know how to clear it out first. Okay. So yeah, feeling states, that's going to be your currency. That's how things manifest in the first place. And getting yourself to a point of, as much as you can, as close as you can get to it, absolute certainty, that state of knowing that Neville talks about. Okay. And the more that you clear out anything existing that would oppose that or cancel that out, the better. That just means that you're not, if you have doubt, all right, that's going to cancel out absolute certainty. So you want to clear through that feeling of doubt. Okay. I hope this is making sense. I know it. I know that it is. If it's not, just you guys go check that Releasing the Wants video. It'll put things more into perspective for you. Yeah, it doesn't have to be lengthy. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. It just needs to be something where you're fostering, you're taking care of yourself. You're really nurturing your feeling state. Think of your feeling state as your baby. Okay. That baby, you got to really take care of that baby, take care of those seeds. Okay. And then really towards the end, I mean, if you have to spend 3 to 7 days, that's fine. But you really want to get yourself to a point, like after you've planted the seed, like start to really take control of your, where your mind is going. It's okay to think of your SP, but really start to try to build a life above and beyond your SP, so that even when they manifest back in, they're not the center of your universe. Okay. That was really what I was doing. I was making sure, like, okay, right now he's the center of my universe. He's all I think about. He's all I'm wanting. I'm needing him. I'm way too attached. So I'm like, okay, I need to detach, pull my energy back, start making myself the center of my universe. Okay. Which means he's not, he's one corner of my universe. I need to go find and build the rest of my universe. Right. And that's what I did. So, I did my best. And of course I used affirmations as needed. Okay. If I noticed that I was feeling that my feeling state was being triggered down, and, if affirmations weren't working to improve my feeling state, that was just a heads up for me to know that there's something that's programmed that is canceling that out. So I need to go ahead and just allow myself to experience, to release what is wanting to come up to the surface to be cleared. Okay. All right. Yeah, this kind of, I want to say exhaustive. I know there's 1,000 techniques out there. I only used, a few. I did SATs, I did affirmations. I did a lot of changing my story about myself, my SP, how my SP, what my story about how my SP viewed me, you know what I mean? So, the first thing that I really did was I got down, I sat down and I wrote stuff out. Okay. I wrote out, what my assumptions were that needed to be changed, what I wanted my new assumptions to be, or my new self-concept to be. And it was pretty lengthy. Okay. Because when you're writing down stories, it's like, it's your story, your self-concept about yourself, your assumptions about yourself in relation to, love, in relation to how other people see you, in relation to how your SP sees you, in relation to how your SP sees love and stuff like that. Okay. And there's going to be some details in there you're going to have to really hammer out. That way you can start to flip that script, flip that story. So if you have an assumption where your SP is a playboy, they're non-committal, they're emotionally unavailable, you definitely want to start affirming the opposite. Okay, creating a different story so that story can manifest. And then living from the end, pick a sad scene and then live from the end as much as possible. Okay, but don't get too caught up in technique. Don't get too caught up in detail. If push comes to shove, you get confused, you don't know what to do, just stop and ask yourself, what am I feeling? Okay, is there something here that I'm needing to release through? Or is it something that I can just affirm and that's all I need to do? Okay. All right. Okay, you guys, I'm going to end the video there. I intend that it was helpful, that it answered a lot of your questions. If not, or you have additional questions that maybe I didn't hit here, just pop them in the comments box below. I will get to them as I can. Okay. All right. I love you guys so much. I'll talk to you guys soon.